Hey, what's going on, man?
Hey,
So
how are you?
I'm good. I couldn't be better. I mean, look where we are. This is crazy.
Yeah, we're in paradise.
It really is paradise, isn't it? I mean, sitting under some palm trees, like I don't know, in the middle of nowhere, kind of feeling. I don't know. They probably can't hear 95.
No, and I think this is a real glimpse of raw nature in Florida. I think a lot of times people get a different style of Florida. They see the beaches and the hustle bustle and the restaurants and all that stuff, but you don't really see that. There's so much more to it.
Yeah. The I was with a buddy the other day, and we were doing something, and he was like, "Man, what if this was our life?" And I'm like, What do you mean? We're doing it right now. Like the thing that, so like, I almost said to you, like, wouldn't it be cool to like you would think, like, wouldn't it be cool to have a podcast in the middle right here and have your van, like,
Yeah.
it is what we're doing.
Absolutely.
It's very cool.
Yeah, and I take that approach even just, I try to intermingle life, business, career, whatever you call it, in my day-to-day, and really try to enjoy so that I'm not living this double life, What I am that you see is a real true depiction of who I am, with how my products are presented and how I show up in life, and I don't want there to be any sort of masking or any sort of depiction that's something other than living your true values, what you do and who you are, and that's kind of a choice that I had made from quite a few years ago.
Was there a catalyst to that decision? Was there an event or I guess just what made you go that route? What made you realize that?
Yeah, I was working in I'm from Canada, from Windsor, which is a very blue collar town in southern Ontario, right across from Detroit. Automotive industry is huge there. So when I was in university, I had a hockey scholarship, and then I'd come home in the summertime, and I would work as a production supervisor at Chrysler, and at the time it's like, you're making all this great money. I've got a new car. I made enough money in the summertime to be able to last me throughout, the whole year while I was at school. So why wouldn't I want to fall into that once school was done, right? So, and that's exactly what happened, and fast forward 10 years later, I'm in this career that I have, and I've got 2 kids and I've got a wife, and everything seems great, and but my wife had some health challenges along the way, and the last one specifically made me really rethink, what am I doing here? I at certain points I didn't really even want to get out of bed to go to work, and I was just living. I was showing up, but I wasn't showing up to my full potential.
Right.
So
showing up for work, family, everything.
Yeah, for just in general, and when she had her issues with health, we had our business at the time, Carrots and Dates in Canada, and 2 restaurants going, and or actually the second one was about to launch, and we had this health scare, and I made a decision.
Working very much. Working a ton.
And we're working. I'm doing renovations inside of the place, and she's going through all this stuff with her health, and I really had to make a decision. When I was going back, it just didn't seem right. But it was the wrong thing to do on the surface, to be like, I'm going to walk away from a 6-figure
maybe
job.
on paper.
Yeah, on paper. Like, why would you do that? You have all these health benefits. You're making all this good money. Restaurant business is so volatile. You don't even know if it's going to work out, and your wife's having blah, blah, blah. So I put my notice in.
So you guys were doing the Carrots and Dates and restaurant like as a passion project in addition to having a W-2 job with some company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she was full time in it. Her background is she went to school for graphic design, but she was born in Bulgaria. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people cook there, and
Right.
like homemade meals is a thing, So when she was going through some health struggles early on, her way of getting out of that without going into medication was to change her diet and do all these things that was kind of against the grain at the time, but also people were starting to be interested. So we started cooking out of our house and, having people come pick up orders every week. And then it evolved into the green markets, with a little food truck, and we were making pancakes and showing up with soups and all these pre-orders and stuff. And
So something that just kind of happened because she needed it to happen.
Yeah.
And then you found your way to distributing it to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it just kind of organically evolved from there, to the point where I would drive her to the market in the morning and set everything up at the trailer. Then I would go work at Chrysler. And
Wow.
then after the market was done, she'd have 2 kids with her at the time. She'd have my son and my daughter.
Wow.
And they basically grew up at the market. So, yeah, it was on the surface it seemed great. We're very healthy. We're kind of like really bringing the health food scene to Windsor, and life appeared to be going really well. And then again, she had another health scare, and it made us really rethink things again. And I think we were talking before that sometimes these unfortunate events that happen end up being the blessing or the catalyst that makes these massive changes in your life. And for me, it was walking away from my job. It was, walking away from alcohol. I grew up in an environment playing hockey where celebratory drinks, and, in the garage with buddies, and it's all good stuff, but it was just I felt like I was moderately moving,
medicating.
In some ways, and it was just holding me back from my higher potential.
It's like sometimes you have to look at those things, and I'm nothing against anything, but like sometimes you have to look personally at things and say, does it serve me anymore? Like what am I getting out of it?
Yeah.
So you have health scares, you're burning the candle at both ends, and then your life is shaken up, and then you decide to leave Chrysler?
Yeah, so this was 2016 I left. We opened we renovated and opened another location, and then 2017 we opened another location, grew that. In all this time, we're going through deep changes in our life, going through neuro-linguistic programming, and we're both seeing coaches on how we can uncover a lot of triggers and belief systems and traumas and
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
We cannot go forward assuming that people know what neuro-linguistic training is.
Yeah.
I certainly don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Can you just really succinctly explain that, and then we'll continue?
Yeah, so neuro-linguistics is basically going through and understanding your patterns and your belief systems.
Okay.
On such a deep level, what are triggers? Like when this person says something to me, it brings up something in me. So, and it's a practice that we think the same thoughts over and over again every day, and we basically live this way on autopilot for a good majority of our day. Our fears and our desires and our anger and our guilt and shame, all that stuff is wrapped up in everything that has come to be who we are up into this point.
So neuro-linguistics, so it's the language or words that cause something to happen in your brain, and then reaction.
And our belief systems, and it makes up everything. So going through this coaching process, it allowed me to understand my patterns and belief systems, and how I'm showing up every day out of those. Like I was a performer and playing hockey, and I was basically trained to be this athlete. And so there's a lot of things that were prominent in my childhood that made me act the way I am acting today.
Right.
Some of them good and some of them bad. So understanding
Some of them just expired.
Yeah,
maybe.
and what's serving me well, and that I want to carry forward, and what needs to be left behind.
Right.
You know, and a lot of it is through journaling and just deepening your awareness to a level when you're like, oh my God, that guy cut me off. I'm not really pissed off because he cut me off. I'm pissed off because of what my wife said to me earlier, or what that guy said to me yesterday that made me feel like I was less than.
I think everybody can relate to that. And I think everybody has experienced in their life the traffic situation where they get mad. And maybe they don't think very much further into that, but they've also had the same experience where somebody cuts them off and they just say, huh. So maybe what you went through helped you identify what makes you mad at that person, what makes you go, huh, at that person. And let's be the guy, the version of Troy that just goes, huh, all the time to that.
Absolutely. And it's a process of, we went through that process physically in the beginning when we started going through this journey of, finding out what's causing illness or symptoms within our bodies, and what's causing me to be angry. And initially it was always about food, and now I got to start running, and it's got to be something to do with exercise. And when you start eliminating stuff, all of a sudden when you go and eat or enjoy something that you had eliminated, you notice it, right? Yeah. So it's like, before I would just go and eat whatever, and I would be bloated all the time, and I wasn't really aware of what things that were coming into my body.
So your gut was running the show.
Yeah.
So is that so you guys go through this transformation, you do put a lot of work in, and you decide to fully devote your time to the health and food industry?
Yeah. And and it was such a beautiful experience for us, because we got to deepen our discussions with people as our understanding of our relationship with food and our understanding with our relationship with our emotions evolved. We got to inject that into our staff at the restaurants. We got to practice it with our children and learning about emotional intelligence, and really having deeper conversations with people that were, before were very much surface level. And
you think that and food helped you get to that point?
Food I feel like was the gateway to it, and then when we both walked away from drinking, that was another big shift, because a lot of the relationships that we had built up to that point were of a different set of conversations, and I feel like when the time came for us to she decided to walk away from drinking before me, and she was not really a big drinker, but when she did, she never felt it never made her feel good.
Right.
And sometimes she started noticing, like, oh, I'm having a drink right now because I'm stressed, or I don't know how to handle my emotions. I don't know how to work through this situation. So maybe I'll just self-medicate a little bit and take the edge off, right? And when we started getting deeper into this, I started realizing now I have to deal with the stuff that's coming up,
right,
in a different way,
which is probably healthy.
Yeah, and again, it was mainly on the physical. I started running, and that's where my whole running and triathlon journey started. Just after I left Chrysler, and just after I kind of left, walked away from alcohol. That was such a healing experience for me, because I would listen to podcasts while I was running, and if yours was available, I probably would have been listening to that.
Man. I
would have been tuned into all the rates and
yeah. It's weird. It's a weird combination of trying to do things like this and then still having, I'm at Chrysler still. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you guys make your way to Florida.
Yeah.
Fully committed to a new lifestyle. And where? All right. So we're. Should we crack these? Can we crack these?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're on this journey, this quest to, be present in every moment and be your full self. Cheers. Thank you. You find that food, beverages are kind of a gateway to bad habits. And then on the other side of that, I guess, would be the running and healing and just forming better patterns. Along with that comes healthy choices with what you're putting into your body. So can you talk a little bit about, let's jump ahead and talk a little bit about what we're sitting in front of.
Yeah.
And what we just opened.
Yeah, so the what's behind us is a 1997 Suzuki Every Classic. This thing it was imported from Japan. I've had a very strong relationship with Japanese culture.
Okay.
From my grandpa, who he went to school in Tokyo, University of Tokyo. He got his engineering, and I've always had this creativity side to me and this pull to explore more of Japanese culture. And,
right.
And he really depicted that in his property back home. He had like a Zen garden and Mount Fuji to scale in the backyard on 25 acres with a koi pond.
Wow.
And it was just beautiful with all these tea ceremony rooms, and they had a 12-course Japanese dinner that they served to people. But my grandpa was very inventive, and he was just such a beautiful soul who had this thirst for life. And my dad also.
What was his name?
His name was Francis.
Okay.
Yeah. And my dad was also the same way. He would teach me constantly to be different, do things that are unusual. So hence why we're sitting in front of this Japanese minivan.
And Zen Coast, it's not just the fact that the word Zen is, on surface level, it's like, oh, be peaceful, like,
Mm-hmm.
and very much trending.
Yeah.
It means more than that.
Much more.
Right.
Yeah. It's really, my wife grew up on the Black Sea in Bulgaria, and when the first 3 months when we moved here, she spent every day at the beach. She would fall asleep there because that was a safe space for her growing up. And when we started thinking of names, when we ended up rebranding the company, Zen just came to us very naturally because it's a very, the coastal vibe, the calming, the peaceful essence, the slowness,
right? Yeah,
which is something that I think we all strive to do in life.
Do you think that we're at a point in our civilization where people have gone so balls to the wall that there is a need for this, like maybe I'm looking for it more, but I'm seeing more. You've got a company that you run out of a van, and it's called Zen Coast. Like, are more people going that way, or have you just found your way there?
No, and I've been saying this for years. I keep telling people the hippie era is upon us. With yoga and meditation and all this mindfulness practice, because we're in a day and age where information is at our fingertips and it's overloading.
It's too much.
It's way too much, right? I just watched a video with Elon Musk, and he was saying that the top 1% of the world that knew the most information in the 90s now is available to everybody at any given moment. So like we've evolved so much, and there's
in like 30 years.
Yeah. And it's in some ways it's exciting, but in other ways it's kind of scary.
It is. It's
like, how do you manage all that? How do you find peace in the busyness of trying to, the facade that sometimes has to go up, on social media, and the amount of competing interests that we have, like making sure the kids are putting them in every sport so that
Right,
they
right,
stay
right.
busy and they're not on their phones all day
Right.
long. And, like I didn't have that growing up. I'd have my fair share of devices, but Atari and ColecoVision can only go so far.
Right.
And like you can only score really high on cool borders for so long before you have to put it down and actually go outside.
Some 80s references.
Yeah.
Well, what music were you listening to?
Everything. Nirvana. Back home, there's a really popular band called Tragically Hip.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Crash Test Dummies.
Crash Test Dummies, yeah. Everything. Metallica, all kinds of, metal bands.
Something that a Canadian hockey player would be listening to.
Yeah, AC/DC.
Right. So, all right. So very cool. And in this day and age, I think it's harder to find peace and live in the moment and do all these things, be present. So maybe there is the pendulum is swinging back the other way, where people are saying, whoa, this is way too much information, way too much distraction. We need to. So these practices that are really ancient are coming back because we need it, maybe more than we've needed it in the last 100 years.
Absolutely. And they've been around forever. It's just it wasn't as necessary as it is now. I always talk about, the mental health problems that we're seeing on such a rampant basis right now is really we're more connected than we've ever been socially as far as what we can communicate online, but having that face-to-face conversation or sitting down at dinner with your family and checking in with each other is not like what they used to do.
Right.
Back in the day, it's like you would know when Billy was off, when he'd come in from the farm and he's all pissed off, and and then you'd have that opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? It's all right, and have that deeper conversation with them. Whereas you can't tell through an emoji if somebody's doing well or not.
Right. So it's like this thought that we're all connected, and then just kind of like, oh, he's fine, and you brush it aside. Whereas you're not sitting down and having a discussion with your family as much, or friends. So it is really hard usually when I do these things to I would really encourage people to watch the whole thing. It's very hard to not jump around, because when you're in a good conversation, it's like you just follow it wherever it goes. But one thing that I wanted to jump back to, and then we'll get back into the business itself. A lot of people can relate to going to college and going into the workforce. Not a lot of people can relate to walking away from it. So we've talked a little bit about what woke you up to that. What can you say about making decisions that might not necessarily make sense on paper, but when you have a feeling in your heart or gut to go do that thing that people might think you're crazy for doing? Like, can you talk about that just a little bit? Because that is unique to you, and a very small percentage of people take those leaps of faith.
Yeah. And I feel like it all has to do with your practicing being outside of your comfort zone, and then tuning in and aligning with what is true to you. Just because your dad or your mom wants you to go to school and take business, or take accounting because it's a safe play, isn't necessarily what your heart is calling.
Right.
And I feel like we go through the institutional kind of placement of, we need doctors, and we need skilled trades, and very much so in where I'm from, it's like we're going to have a shortage of electricians. Just Billy's not so great at school, so we'll just put him into that program and then kind of see where he falls, and I feel like that is very much played into society. And you don't want to upset the family. You don't want to ruffle any feathers. You don't want to go against the grain, because now I have to come up and explain myself. Yeah,
you don't want to have to explain yourself, and you don't want, and maybe you second guess yourself.
And it's scary. It's really scary, honestly. Owning your own business, and you're 100% accountable to what happens.
Is there anything better than that, though?
It is the most beautiful thing that I've ever experienced, but it's also extremely stressful. But you know that at the end of the day, you're living the lifestyle that you've created.
So we all have decisions to make at all times, and you make millions of decisions. So when you're making a decision to do something like this, and you're following your heart, as someone who did it, who is doing it, maybe I should say, how do you identify, like, when it is that, like, when to follow that gut feeling? What helped you?
Yeah, I've always had this voice inside of me that was always seeking experiences, and some of the experiences were great and some of them were not so great. And when you're younger, you don't really know who you are, unless you've had those deep embedded values, and you've practiced communicating with your family and with your friends in a way that's like constantly bouncing ideas back and forth. And I feel like travel is another thing, where you really get those worldly experiences and you get to go out. But I think, going back to your question, how those decisions are made now that I just turned 40 and I have this responsibility. More than anything, I have a responsibility to myself. Because if I'm not happy, then the people around me are not going to be happy either.
Right.
So that's where the root of all my decisions come from. And a lot of times it could be my wife pushing me to go in a certain direction. And when we were trying to figure out if we wanted to go, we had the opportunity where we're like, hey, we're going to expand our business. We're going to move to the States. Initially, it was Detroit. We went and spent a few days there. It would have been the safest play for us. I have family that lives there. I could go back and forth across the border.
Close enough, yeah.
Be back to our other restaurant within.
Just like that, we're back. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
The double A's ran out.
Yeah.
So, all right, now I'm a little like second guessing. All right. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Awesome.
All right, cool. So, sorry
No, it's
about
all good,
that.
man.
Where were we?
Yeah. So where am I basing my decisions on, and how do I come to that?
How do you follow your gut? How do you follow your heart?
Yeah, and it's just this constant. You got to constantly be refining and going through the process of figuring out what it is that lights you up, And it's something that we're told when we're younger, like do what you love. And,
Right. Yep. And then when you get older, doing what you love is not necessarily celebrated.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You kind of lose that after, and it's no longer about what you do that you love. It's more do what you can to survive.
Right.
And that's where the money game comes in, and it got me. It got me for over 10 years, and having a condo when as soon as I graduated university, and having all this money while I was at school and stuff. It was nice to have, but fast forward a bunch of years, I kind of wish that I didn't do that. I'm not regretful in any way. Like, a lot of the foundation that I got from my experiences in automotive were so valid for me and so necessary. And I used those skills that I acquired over a number of years today still, dealing with different people in unionized environments, and just developing your range.
Right.
Your range of what you can adapt to is really what life is all about. And then when you start getting to the age where you're like, okay, now I can start making choices and moving towards a life that I love, what does that look like? And doing it before you're kind of in the retirement phase.
Right. Not letting the corporate whatever take all of your creative time and energy. So you have all these experiences. You've been you've been in different places. You've made decisions based on what makes you based on following your heart. All of these different experiences have led you here. So you've got, again, back to the van. You've got the van. Usually the van has some taps attached to it, and you're dispersing your live kombucha, and you have other elixirs.
Yeah. So we have endurance beverages. So we have an Arnold Palmer. We have a pink lemonade. We make green juice. We make watermelon juice. We make all kinds of anything that could be dispensed out of a tap, based on the experiences that we've had over the number of years bringing products to market. We were able to do that with our restaurant. We had some of our sauces in the grocery store. We had our kombucha in the grocery store. We had our fermented foods, our sauerkraut and kimchi. So it was just a natural progression for us to come here and say, okay, we don't really want to be in the restaurant game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be more behind the scenes. We want to supply, potentially consult, but then go back to our roots of what got us to where we are today, which was the markets.
Right.
Going to
cool.
the markets was the safest play for us before opening a brick and mortar.
Do you think it is maybe ingrained in our genetics, these markets? Think about 1,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. The internet wasn't a thing. Emails weren't a thing, but people were going to markets. Mm-hmm. Is it crazy to say part of the human experience, at least over the last couple thousand years, has been going to the market and trading and doing that?
Yeah, and it's something that I feel is really starting to come full circle again. These green markets in Florida, especially, they're everywhere.
It's awesome.
Anybody can go and take some of their passions. Like if you love baking, you could get a cottage food license and start baking stuff out of your house and go to a green market.
Yeah.
There's obviously some restrictions on what you can do with that. You have to, you have to sell under a certain amount, but there's potential and opportunity for you to connect with your customer, right? And that's where you gain the following and the customers. I think we had a couple thousand people following us, and this was back in 2013 on Instagram.
Yeah.
So when we opened our doors in Facebook and Instagram, we had this really strong following, and we were educating people on ingredients and all this stuff. So when we opened the doors, there was no, okay, now we got to figure out how to get people in here.
Right.
It was like people were rushing in.
Oh,
and
finally.
Yeah.
That's so. So you've been around the block, and it leads you back to the markets. And you're at what markets? I'm
at Stewart Market on Sundays. We just got into the Gardens Market, which is also Sunday. Starts October 1st. And then we got into Swank Produce Market, which is a really niche specialty market out in Loxahatchee. They do these epic farmhouse dinners that are just they're always themed. Is the
dinner supplied by all the vendors that are there?
In some ways, yeah. They even have, obviously they grow produce, but they also have, certain animals that are on the farm that they use for the presentation of these dinners, and they'll feature chefs, and it's
so
definitely
cool.
Something that you'd want to experience because it gives you a different sense of Florida.
Right.
Again, we think beaches all the time, but every time I go to Loxahatchee, I find something cool.
It's kind of like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You find those niche farms and gratitude farms, and there's drum circles every other Thursday at this other farm, and then they have goat yoga and cacao ceremonies once a month at 24 Carat Ranch, and there's just so many cool things to explore, and I keep on getting led to those places for some reason.
So
Yeah.
I think you maybe are attuned to following something,
Hmm.
because you were led to this place and you followed it, and it's serving you well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Are you a better person for it?
100%, you know,
And
because I know what kind of conversation I want to have. I know who I want to engage with. I know that I love to bike and run and swim. And, you know, if I would have moved somewhere 15 years ago to settle in, I probably would have ended up, well, I definitely would have ended up with a different crowd, you know.
Mhm.
And now that I've really figured out what it is that I love to do, it's I wouldn't say it's easy, because, you know, anytime going somewhere new and different can be a little, it can be a little scary, you know, to
Right.
just wheel up at somebody's place and start having a conversation with them, or engaging with customers at a market. It's like, it's kind of scary. It's a practice, right?
Right.
And it's something that we practice for so long, and then it just becomes second nature, and you start seeking it, you know.
And then it feels good, because just to go back to like the world we're living in and the cell phones and everything, like that is so the opposite of the human experience.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, like, language is very unique. Complex language is very unique to humans, our species. So, like, of course, conversing with people and having those discussions with people feels great,
Yeah.
because it's the complete opposite of the phone, which usually makes people feel like crap, and B, it's like it's what we've evolved to do.
Yeah.
So you're I'm finding, or I think I'm finding from our conversation, that you're tuned into something,
Mm-hmm.
and you're listening, and it's leading you places. So we could probably talk for 2 hours, 3 hours a day about all of that, and we will get back to some of it. But I do want to talk. I keep going the other direction. I want to talk specifically about your products.
Yeah.
You're selling them at the green markets.
Yeah. So they're at the green markets. We have we have them at a co-op, which is One World Zero Waste in Tequesta, and also in Delray.
Okay.
We have our kombucha at Golden Juicery in Juno Beach.
Nice.
Ethan's really aligns with who we are and our belief systems and our values. So we've been very specific about who it is that we're choosing to evolve our relationship with.
So it's not necessarily about like, oh, we're gonna pay you X amount of dollars. That doesn't.
No.
It's more about.
Yeah, and it can be a more difficult route. You know, like we could scale the business and get into every grocery store if we wanted, but I feel like it's about building relationships and and deepening our awareness again, and getting into places that really align with who we are and what we believe in, you know. So because we are a reflection of our business, right?
And who sells your stuff is a reflection of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, there's quite a few others that we have interest in starting to do business with, but you know, coming up with the season, the market season, it's to me it's not a major priority. I think going through a full cycle of the markets and then seeing how the dust settles and really allowing ourselves to figure out, you know, what's the next step for us is I feel like is, you know, that's part of the plan, part of the journey, and then we'll see how it unfolds, you know.
Yeah. So in the beginning of this, you mentioned that you don't want to live a double life, right? And then you've talked about how the experiences you've had are a culmination of who you are, and it helps you in all aspects. So it's like cross sections and intersections. So now you just touched on you want your product to be with people that align with you. So it's very clear that like your work is your life, and your life they're the same thing. And I think that is beautiful. Do you have any like insight on how to kind of make sure that that people are doing that, or maybe at least entrepreneurs are doing that? Because entrepreneurs who are working all the time at a craft that they don't love, it's going to be terrible because it's going to consume them. But here you are, somebody who your work is your life, and vice versa, and you're not burnt out or angry about it. You're the opposite. So how does that happen?
Yeah, and again, it starts understanding. You got to understand, what is it? Why do I do what I do? You know, the book that I know a lot of people are familiar with, Start With Why. That's a great place to start, is really understanding why you do what it is that you do, you know, and then focusing on, you know, building your products and building your customer base, and the marketing and all that stuff then becomes somewhat organic in a way, because you're surrounding yourself with people. You know, when I'm going to running events and I'm going to cycling events and I'm going for group runs and swimming and going to these markets, it's just easy conversation that you have. There's no real convincing, because it's more you know, people who align with the lifestyle that we've chosen. And it takes a while to get there, because you also have to make sure that you're making money.
Right.
You know, so there's like that fine line.
I was just about to ask you got 2 kids. If you were doing all this and you guys were going broke, I mean, that would be a little bit difficult. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, like this whole move to Florida has been a pretty significant stretch financially. Like, we didn't just move cities, we moved countries, and with that comes lack of contacts, lack of credit, lack of knowledge of building standards, lack of, you know, you don't have the connections that you did before, right? So this has been the biggest step outside of my comfort zone that I've ever been in, by far. And you know, I've heard quite a few times, it's like, once you stretch your comfort zone, you know, now you've opened up that sphere to allow you to continue expanding it, right? So you know, I would never want to have to go through something like this again, but I also keep reminding myself that, you know, what's difficult and hard sometimes are oftentimes, and I would say 99% of the time, what brings you the most joy once you get over that hurdle. It's the same with, you know, you're doing a marathon and you get to those last 5 miles and you're like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
And then you get to the finish line and you're like,
looking for the next
event, you know, like, I don't know how many times I've had that correlation with, you know, whether I'm running an Ironman or, you know, doing marathons or in a swim with, you know, 2,000 people in the water and getting kicked and punched, and, you know, and it's really those moments of difficulty that once you prevail and then you get to the other side. The same would be, I've never climbed a mountain, but I imagine the same feeling would be if you were to summit a mountain.
Well,
you know?
It's like, and I've kind of drawn this conclusion from time to time, and something that people can relate to is maybe having to give a speech at school for a school project, or maybe you're the best man at a wedding, right? And you hate public speaking, and you go out there, and 2 minutes before the speech, you're like, this is atrocious, I don't want to do this. You go do it, you get through it, you get to the end, people clap, you feel great because you did something you thought you couldn't do, and then you're on the other side of it and you're high off of it. And so putting yourself in situations like that is, I think it's part of the human experience, and that's why it feels good.
Yeah, I think it's not a, you know, I often reflect on like Pleasantville and other movies like that where, you know, everything's just perfect all the time. Could you imagine we didn't have struggle and everything was just good? Everybody had the same amount of, like, everybody had enough money to survive. No one really had to stretch. That would be pretty boring. After a while, I don't know. Maybe
we're kind of there, and everybody's asked these big questions about society and why we have a bunch of issues. I mean, could that be kind of, maybe we are living in a version of Pleasantville? It's kind of not as pretty version of Pleasantville, but when you think about it, everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's got a big screen, flat screen TV, and as much TV and whatnot as you can possibly consume.
And what we would think I think our life is in compartments, right? And certain parts of our life could be in that space, but then you also realize that compartment specifically, you're not growing
Mm-hmm.
because you become so comfortable. And it could be your career, it could be your marriage, it could be how you're parenting your kids. Just a whole number of things that could attribute to that.
Yeah. And when you were talking about moving to Florida and it being challenging, and you don't necessarily everyone, I was kind of thinking, and not to be grandiose, but most, especially like ancient Greek myths or epics, they follow a archetype, a story line, the hero's journey. So you've got to go on a journey and stretch yourself and kind of hit rock bottom and then find your way, and then by the end of it you come out a better person than you would have ever have been if you hadn't gone through that beating.
Absolutely.
So
there's so many things that have happened since we moved to Florida. I went to my first week-long meditation event, Joe Dispenza in Cancun, and then right after I was about to turn 40, and my wife brought me to this breathwork class in Palm Beach Gardens. It's called the Jamar Enlightenment Center, and I had never done breathwork aside from doing some Wim Hof stuff, and I was like, whatever. The experience that I just had at Joe Dispenza, there's nothing that could possibly
you can't
trump
learn it
that.
on YouTube.
So I go to this class, and the first class that I did, my whole body became engulfed in electricity, and it had all these emotions that started coming out of me after just 1 hour of breathing. And it was a very specific technique. And then came the opportunity for me to sign up for a week-long radical sabbatical. And instantly I was like, yeah, I have to do this. I'm turning 40 right in the middle of it. And I'm like, this is my calling to do something in a different realm. And it completely changed my life.
Yeah.
And so much so that I went on to become a facilitator intern. A couple weeks ago, I finished my training, and now I have a new level of understanding of what it's like to be of service to other people. I've never felt so connected and so compassionate to people and so willing to be of service. And then it's kind of it's trickled through many different areas of my life, with my wife and our relationship, and me really being there and present for her and not having to try to say anything or change anything, just accepting her for who she is. And it's just had a profound effect. And I don't think I would have went through that stuff if I wasn't having such a difficult time in this transition that we've been going through. There's been a number of events that have happened throughout the last year that have been like testing my capacity to be able to continue moving forward.
Yeah, and you work so hard to become this person, and you, when challenges come up, that's the time to shine. Anybody can be like, when it's peaceful and money's in the bank and everything's going great and the kids are behaving. Of course, you can be the Zen guy then, but who are you when things get tough? So, and here you are.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And I think the reason that we're here, now I don't really know, but I think the reason that we're here was to talk about your guys' company and whatnot. But we have been talking about it. We've been talking about the person who helms it, and you take all of these lessons that you've and all of the person that you are, and you put that into the product that you're putting out. Is that fair to say? It
is, and there's one more, extension to this that, right when COVID hit, I started realizing, okay, I need to really start honing in on my skills and get certified. So I went and got this coaching certification, which my wife also has, and it was called Integral Coaching, and it's a Canadian company. And then I started coming up with these ideas. Maybe I'm going to start coaching men, and I want to have retreats, and I want to, start getting properties and lo and behold, we have a property that we had purchased in Fort Myers that we were in the process of converting into a shipping container eco community that will be able to host wellness retreats and really embed these lifestyle hacks that we've been able to collect over the years in the form of how it is that they're staying and what they're going to experience when they're there. But then it's also another opportunity for us to make that part of our lifestyle. We have a property in Asheville as well, where I plan on doing the same sort of thing. So that's where my love of real estate has really pushed me to the point where I went and got my realtor's license and just got I'm an agent now for Weichert in Jupiter, and the brokerage has been around for 40 years.
Nice.
And the backbone of the brokerage is rooted in outdoors and all things active.
So you've got a lot of things going on, right?
Yeah.
Somebody might hear that and think, you're moving in 100 different directions.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say?
I would say they're all intermingled. They're all relative. When I'm at a market and meeting people, that's a contact. That's a lead. When I'm out kayaking or I'm running or I'm swimming or I'm biking, that's all part of the relationship building that I'm doing. I'm utilizing my food and beverage company as a way to connect with people that see eye to eye with me. And I'm not going after anybody specific when it comes to real estate at this point, but it's more, how can I, if you align with what I value and you think that I could be of service with my background in restaurants and running businesses, and those people are already starting to come to me. And I feel like real estate can be something initially, at least, that can be, it doesn't have to be a full-time thing. But I've been on this quest of making my life by design, and how can I make the two interchangeable in a way that I feel like I'm out here right now. I'm technically, this is work.
Right.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
And I have a meeting. We're at Halpatioke Park. We're opening an outdoor center here in a month, and Rick Clegg, who owns Jupiter Outdoor and Love Street Outdoor, who's become a mentor of mine, has been running these businesses for 26 years, and now has called on me to help him with the retail side of the business and really try to create an experience with food and beverage as well.
So you're not going in a million different directions. You're going in one direction, and it's based on what?
It's based on my lifestyle and food and beverage, and a love for building communities that add value to people's lives. All the projects that I've been involved in leading up to this day has always been, how can I add more value to the people that are coming to these areas?
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're renovating a market space to bring in a sandwich shop and bring in like an eco-friendly shop and creating this walkable space, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Windsor, or building up a building where it's like a mercantile center where the butcher's on the main floor and there's a restaurant upstairs and there's a cafe and there's a little market, and it's all kind of like intermingling with each other.
Yeah.
And it's getting people outside, getting them in communal kind of situations where they can kind of gather, and you're building that community, and that to me is at the root of everything that I do.
So it's rooted in that, and then it's what can I do to further that foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and be of service to people.
Absolutely, yeah, and and it's not easy. I'll tell you, it's when you're starting fresh on so many things, we had and we still have a great life, but we had a pretty incredible life in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We have 40 plus employees that are across 2 restaurants, and oftentimes we really wouldn't even need to go in to work if we didn't want to. And like we've been running those restaurants from here for just over a year, and we have a good team there. We have an amazing manager at our main location, and we have a business partner at another location that's running everything, and it's it's really understanding and empowering people
Mm-hmm.
to allow them to make decisions
And not being a control freak.
Yeah, and then looking at the data and saying, okay, well, this review wasn't great. Every person that's coming through, a couple hundred people every day between both locations are coming through, and that's their opportunity to criticize.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also a tool for me to be able to see, are we moving in the right direction?
That's why the markets are so great, because that happens in real time right in front of your face, and you
Absolutely.
can you can grow based on that. So we came here to talk about, I thought we were coming here to talk about Zen Coast and the juices, but it turns out that we discussed more who you are, which is great. It's perfect that we went that route, because again, it comes out in your branding, in your van, in your the way that you do things, the way that you carry yourself. So people can expect the product to be a reflection of that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the product is being put out because you want to serve people in a way that's going to help them be healthy, mind, body.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Because to me, again, it's the gateway. You start taking care of your body on the physical. You putting good probiotics in your stomach. You're eating fermented foods like our sauerkraut, our kimchi, our beetroot kraut.
Mm-hmm.
All of those are gonna add so much life force to your body. When you consume them, it removes a lot of the toxins that we're consuming on a day-to-day. There's studies that just came out, and I'm not biased on this, but it was from a place in Bulgaria where my wife is from, and it was really interesting, because then I started looking at other studies and realizing that the process that your stomach goes through, and when you're digesting fermented foods, the fermentation of that that bacteria that goes in there is also helping in removing, glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup.
Right.
Most of our food, unfortunately, is covered in that.
And as a society, we're asking a lot of questions right now. Why is there more depression than ever? Why are people doing these crazy things? Mass shootings, violence, anger, depression, medication, like pharmaceutical medication, antidepressants, antipsychotics. They're all skyrocketing. And, we can draw conclusions. If some toxin is in all of our food, and it started 30 years ago, which, oh, by the way, kind of is in correlation with all of this stuff that is happening in our society, maybe it's not a bad thing to eat these things that removes that from you, the bad toxin.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, it's like, you don't have to be 100%, you don't have to be fanatical and be on a specific diet to be healthy. You just have to be able to have
awareness,
an opportunity to speak what's on your mind, to get out in sunlight, and hence why we're, one of the major reasons why we moved to Florida. The vitamin D is such a benefit to us beyond what we can even comprehend. And then putting yourself in a situation where you make the choices of what kind of food it is that you're eating, to the point where when the weekend comes and you're gonna eat an ice cream, or you're gonna eat whatever, there's no guilt behind it, and there's no like, oh, I gotta go on a diet. It's like, no, this is my lifestyle,
and it's great.
And then you're like, I could eat whatever, I can eat the fries and the whatever, because I feel like I've already done a lot of the work to be able to get to the point where I'm at. So it's like, to me, it would be a treat, which is what I feel like we've gone so much on the the
Indulgence.
pendulum has shifted so much with how we consume. It's like eating way too much of certain things, even plants. I think just being moderate with stuff and eating what your body is craving.
Mm-hmm.
But then also understanding, like, am I eating this because I'm really emotional and pissed off right now? Because maybe I need to step back and drink some water, or maybe go for a little walk, or air it out with my wife, or whoever it is that you speak to, or maybe you journal.
Mm-hmm.
Before you go and consume that, because that comes with that deeper level of awareness.
So, being in a student of all of this and how it affects your body, if somebody is having an emotional response to something and is going to go grab something to consume, should it be?
Water.
Just freaking water.
Just drink water, and maybe sprinkle a little bit of some salt in there, especially being in Florida. Most of what we're sweating out is sodium.
Mm-hmm.
So good salt, like a Redmond salt, or
Himalayan
or a Celtic salt. It has all the minerals and nutrients that water once had.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's filtered out so much, and you're really just drinking chlorine in some ways, right? So it's really important we could go all the way down a deeper rabbit hole about all that stuff.
Well, it's like at what point are we going to stop acting like there aren't correlations and start trying to do things the right way? But there are more and more people like you are popping up and devoting their life to it. So I think that's great. So what goes into, take me from, we're in your mindset, okay? What's in this can? How did it get there?
Yeah. So kombucha is a fermented tea. It's about a 7-day process of fermenting. So you basically make a giant tea with, we use organic cane sugar, actually harvested right from West Palm Beach. And then, we use green tea, and we put this SCOBY, which is a symbiotic culture of bacteria of yeast, on top of the liquid after it cools with a 10% starter. And this 10% starter is from a liquid that, we used from a prior batch. And then during that fermentation process, it's now consuming all of the sugar that you put in there. The 80 to 85% of the sugar that's in there gets consumed. It's food for the culture. And then it starts to ferment and creating, this bacteria that's really, it's a fizzy drink that's good for you. And this one is Lavender Fields, which is lavender hibiscus. And then the
Pure Love I got over here.
Yeah, and the center one's Sunny Day, which is hop, ginger, and orange peel. And then Pure Love is just pure. We don't nothing added. And
nice.
Then we also make a June, I think is how you pronounce it. We use honey, a local beekeeper. We use their honey. It's kombucha with honey, because some people don't want to consume cane sugar, and so we use their honey, and it's just a wildflower honey, and it's like they call it the champagne of kombucha. And then we also make a Arnold Palmer with Himalayan salt, Earl Grey tea, organic lemon juice, and agave. And then we do a pink lemonade that has lavender and pea flower with agave and Himalayan salt.
What amount of the ingredients are sourced locally?
So the sugar is all local. That is still something that's, like we obviously source things from local suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
As far as where it came from, that's still something that, Florida is not the greatest place to grow some of the ingredients,
right.
Some of our other ferments, but that's where the quest to continue deepening my relationships with farmers out in Loxahatchee, and the sourcing that's happening over at Zero Waste in Tequesta. They have a really cool produce pickup program there, so they have a pretty good network. And I feel the more I dive into those kind of things, the the more readily
tips and tricks
available.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've got all of your ingredients. Do you send it off like to somewhere to have them boil it up and can it for you?
No, we process everything in house. We have 7 40-gallon symbiosis fermenters. That is very unique to the industry. We purchased a lot of our equipment from Portland, Oregon, and then we ferment everything there. We package everything there. We put all of our labels on. We had a local graphics company design the first set of labels. It's called Coastal Vibes, and we really align with them as far as our values, with being near the water and getting that beach vibe, so that's where a lot of the inspiration came from our logo, and a lot of the packaging as well. So and then we distribute everything ourselves. When we had the other vehicle, we would go and we'd be willing to do more deliveries and stuff, but obviously there was I was in an accident in May that was another hurdle for us. Yeah.
So you wrecked your other van?
Yeah, totally.
How'd that happen?
I was on my way to our first big event in Boca.
First big event.
So
you're in Florida, you're all geared up.
Yeah, 1 year later, after working on this van, to the day, May 20th of 2022 is when I purchased the vehicle. It was the only one in the U.S. that was a refrigerated Kai Japanese right-hand drive box truck that was refrigerated. And had it shipped, worked on it for the whole year. May 20th, 2023.
On your way to your first big event?
On my way
to unveil
the 7,000 women. The stage is set for me to give them all these beautiful elixirs and drinks and everything. And I was rear-ended on the turnpike, and I'm just very lucky to be here. It was a pretty horrific accident.
All right. That was when?
May 20th.
So like 6 months ago, 4 months ago,
Yeah.
3 months ago?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it
Yeah.
is. What do you think that was?
That was the death of the old brand. We were carrots and dates leading up to that day, and that was a sign for me to slow down in some way, to get clear on what it is that we're doing here, and refine our product offering. And then I think it was just another test to see how deep and how much are you willing to endure to get what you want,
Mm-hmm.
And and now we're here.
So some people that things like that happen and they say, God, it's just my luck.
Oh, it's a sign. We got to go back. We got to go back to Canada. It's definitely come across my mind, to be like, oh, well, maybe all these hurdles that I'm having to go through is a sign that we just shouldn't be here.
Well, you have the opportunity to things happen to everyone, and everybody has the opportunity to tell themselves what it means, and then go from there. So a lot of people are under the mindset of like things are happening to them because they have bad luck, or like, but why not say it's the death of our brand, and now I'm gonna like rise from the ashes as a new brand with a new meaning that's deeper and better.
Yeah, and I always have these. It's really interesting. I always have this vision of like my future self being somewhere, which could be here right now, speaking about the struggles and hurdles that I've had to overcome. And I ask myself constantly in the moment, like, what would my future self look back on, and would you be proud of what you've done, or would you feel disappointed or upset in giving up? Like, it's just there's no such thing as quitting. Like,
right.
You just got to continue moving forward, and then carry forward the things that were working and the things that were not.
Right.
So
were there things that needed to be left behind?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like, so you're choosing to see a silver lining in your van being destroyed.
Yeah, and we were still really in it. It was, the opening of our facility took way longer than it should have. There was just a series of events that happened. My son had a real tough time transitioning, being 15 years old and being pulled away from all of his friends back home. That was a really tough thing for him. And then,
How's he doing now?
he's doing great.
He's doing
great.
great?
He's back to playing soccer, and like his whole life goal is to have, just plentiful amount of friends that he aligns with and be able to ride his bike around. And he's going fishing all the time now. And he still has his good share of struggles. I think, as would any 15-year-old. I think he would be having this a very similar struggles than he does now, even if he was back home. Like high school is it's a tough time. You transition out of grade school. For Canada, you go right from grade 8 out of elementary, where you're in the same class all day long with the same teacher, and then you just go right to high school.
Right.
Whereas in Florida, you transition, and I feel like it's better prepares you for switching, classes every period and getting you used to that.
Right.
So, and he even says, he's like, I wish I would have been here for middle school to be able to build that. He came from a school of like 500-600 kids to
Right.
3,500 at Jupiter High.
Wow.
So
It's a lot of kids for high school.
yeah.
I'm sure there's bigger ones, but
Yeah.
so that's cool. So he's doing good. And do you like, how much of this lifestyle will you share with him? Like,
It's constant.
he's ready.
He's very we have developed him on such a level now where we've constantly pushing him outside of his comfort zone. We've specifically put him in situations to challenge that level of comfort. He's one that he's not a big fan of change.
Mm-hmm.
He likes staying in his lane. He doesn't like going into new experiences that much, and it really shakes him. But I know when he gets older, it's going to be something that he's going to be very thankful for, right?
It's unrealistic to think things aren't going to change, so preparing people for that is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to be dynamic and be able to adapt, and different cultures, different people, different situations. The world's changing at such a rapid rate. Like, you have to be, and then have the tools to be able to communicate when you're not feeling so great, which is something my wife has embedded in the kids from day one. She spends more time with them talking about their emotions than any other thing. And that has been a true blessing, because they know when something's not going well, or she's often telling, put your hand on your heart and talk about how you're feeling. What's your heart saying? And like really tuning into their bodies and stuff, which is kind of woo-woo stuff. But,
no, it's great, and it's important. What point do you think that there's is there such a thing as overindulging in that?
Well, I think you could focus too much on it, and like, I feel like think positive. You can just think positive. Don't really, and then you kind of ignore it in some ways as well. Like, if something's on your mind and it's on your heart and it's starting to come up, you need to be able to speak about it, but you also don't need to be dwelling on it constantly, because then that could be your mode of operation that you're constantly in, dwelling on all the things that are coming up. Like, things are constantly going to come up, right? So it's learning how to balance that and know when you need to speak about it. And, it's all just a practice.
Cool. Is that dog our green light or our light?
Maybe, yeah.
Is that like, how like at a club?
I think so, yeah. Like the snake on the doorway there. You gotta, yeah.
Cool, man. Well, let's wrap this thing up. I think it's been great. I've learned a lot about you. Most of the time when we do these things, it's like, is that just a jumble of words that nobody's gonna understand? And then it turns out you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I think I was very drawn to you when I met you the first day. I feel like you're bringing such a beautiful thing to the world, your energy.
Oh, thanks, man.
You know, how you go about life, and you have a family, and I was really excited when I first met you, because I was like, oh, you know, this guy's potentially going to become a lifelong friend, and I'm super thankful that you've had me
Dude.
here, you know.
Yeah, you don't have to say that, but I really appreciate that. I am currently, like, at times, like, what the hell? This is so much work, and it's like, what is it for? And is it even? I mean, like, it's basically just volunteer work and a passion, but I enjoy it so much. And likewise, when I saw you, it was like, hey, what's up? It's like we were buddies. So I feel the same exact way, and it's awesome. And I can't wait to see you at the market. And I'm so happy we got to sit down and talk. And I'll be looking to you for guidance with all this stuff, because I think we're on a similar path.
Yeah, I would love to sit down again and keep exploring different things, and maybe
we'll take the show out to one of the farms, and we can like do like a co-hosted thing.
Absolutely,
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Or we could get like a panel or something.
Yeah, that'd be phenomenal.
I'll just be the facilitator, and you can ask the proper questions.
Yeah, like I feel like uncovering a little bit more of what Florida has to offer, you know.
Yeah.
Is really, there's so much history and so much depth to it.
You can go on YouTube, and you can like, there's a million different like independently done like mini documentaries about like Brooklyn, or like, you know, Chicago, or this place. Is there much about like the culinary arts of Jupiter or Loxahatchee, or you know,
like the history of this river? Rick would be another guy to eventually have on. He told me that this used to be the main route for smuggling during Prohibition from the Bahamas all the way to Miami.
Yeah, there's probably
the Lost River, and that's where it got its name. So it's like we are on that river right now, and we're about to open an outdoor center with kayak rentals and bike rentals and all kinds of fun stuff. So October, it looks like beginning of October, but
you know what, we should just, when it reopens, we'll re-meet up.
Perfect.
And that's
maybe
what
we'll do a boat podcast.
That would be amazing.
We'll be on like a pontoon or something.
We're battery eyes, so
yeah, perfect.
Cool. All right, man. Well,
cool, man.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome, right?
Yeah. Come here, man. Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Dude, when I was thinking, I didn't want to like ask, because we were going down a rabbit hole. Do you know who Aubrey Marcus is?
Yeah.
When you were telling me about your service, do you know his Fit for Service?
Yeah, there is another. Actually, one of the guys that I went to the Jerry Spencer retreat with works with us.
Really?
And he was the one who turned me on to breath work when I was at this retreat. He came very close. He lives in Sedona, and Aubrey Marcus has like
Right.
Sedona.
That's a wild guy.
Yeah.
Like,
Hey.
Got any kombucha for sale?
Yeah. I've got some for sample. If you want.
Good shit, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I like it. Wow, nice setup.
what do you, you must sync that with
Which one do you want?
later.
Orange.
Yep, exactly right. So,
I'm not choosing.
I've got the audio file on this recorder.
What a cool setup.
Wow.